Today is a big day for New Zealand. We have just concluded a free trade agreement with India. Now, this may not sound like a big deal for you, but trust me.
What happens when a trade deal becomes so controversial it splits a government down the middle? When coalition partners revolt, opposition parties cry foul, and social media erupts in outrage. This is the story of how India secured one of its most strategic trade wins in years, and why New Zealand's own government turned against itself in the process. The deal that shocked the country. On December 22, 2025, just days before Christmas, Prime Minister Christopher Luxon announced that New Zealand had concluded a historic free trade agreement with India, the world's most populous nation and a rapidly growing economic powerhouse. Luxon called it a landmark achievement, saying the deal would reduce or remove tariffs on 95% of New Zealand's exports. The promise was simple: more exports, more growth, more jobs. On paper, the numbers looked impressive. Over half of New Zealand's exports would become duty-free immediately. In return, New Zealand would open its market fully to Indian exports. The deal aimed to double bilateral trade within 5 years and included a $20 billion New Zealand investment commitment into India over the next 15 years. But the reaction was immediate and explosive. Social media lit up with anger, skepticism, and disbelief. And the most serious backlash wasn't coming from the public alone. It was brewing inside the government itself. Because once the details emerged, many Kiwis began asking the same question. What exactly did New Zealand give up? The Dairy Exclusion. To understand the backlash, you need to understand dairy. Dairy products account for roughly 30% of New Zealand's total exports worldwide, a cornerstone of the economy. And in this deal, dairy was largely left out. India refused meaningful access for New Zealand milk, cheese and butter, protecting its own massive domestic dairy sector that supports millions of small farmers. New Zealand accepted that exclusion, signing the deal without securing access for its largest export industry. That made this agreement unprecedented. It was the first major trade deal New Zealand had ever signed, while sidelining its most important export sector. Industry groups were measured but clear. The deal did little to address India's long-standing barriers to New Zealand dairy. Meanwhile, Indian media openly celebrated the outcome as a strategic success. And while the public debate intensified, the political fallout was about to get much worse. The coalition breaks. Winston Peters, Deputy Prime Minister, Foreign Minister, and leader of New Zealand First, publicly announced his party would vote against the trade deal negotiated by his own government. He called it neither free nor fair, arguing it was rushed and low quality. This was extraordinary. Coalition governments depend on unity, and Peters' rebellion put the entire agreement at risk. His concerns went beyond dairy, focusing heavily on immigration provisions tied to the deal. Peters warned the agreement could significantly increase migration numbers through work and study pathways. The government disputed his figures, saying the numbers were far lower and tightly controlled. But the disagreement exposed deep fractures within the coalition. With New Zealand First opposing the deal, Luxon faced the possibility of needing opposition support just to pass his flagship trade agreement. India's strategic win. While New Zealand's politics unravelled, Indian analysts praised their negotiators. India secured full access to New Zealand's market while protecting every politically sensitive sector: dairy, sugar, edible oils, selected agricultural goods, and more. Nothing central to India's domestic economy was left exposed. Indian commentators openly described the deal as a major victory. Even New Zealand's opposition criticism was cited as evidence of how favourable the agreement was for India. The deal also included expanded mobility provisions, opening pathways for Indian students and skilled workers into New Zealand's labour market, particularly in areas facing shortages. From India's perspective, it was disciplined, strategic, and consistent with a broader global trade strategy. Public anxiety boils over. The reaction online revealed more than anger about trade policy. It exposed deeper anxieties about jobs, wages, housing, and national identity. Many posts focused on immigration pressure, job competition, and fears of worsening housing affordability. Others expressed frustration with political leadership and a sense that decisions were being made too quickly, without public buy-in. Not all reactions were constructive, but the volume and intensity showed this deal had struck a nerve. For many, it wasn't just about tariffs, it was about the direction of the country. A rushed process. Critics across parties argued the deal was negotiated too quickly. Talks began in March 2025 and concluded just 9 months later, unusually fast for an agreement of this scale.
Not only concluded in a record time of 9 months, with a developed economy, we are all aware it usually takes much longer.
The timing of the announcement, just before Christmas, also drew criticism as limiting public scrutiny. Immigration provisions, particularly around so-called green list roles, raised questions about whether the deal truly focused on high-skill shortages or broader labour access. The lack of dairy access stood out even more when compared to previous trade agreements, where dairy had always been central. Two visions collide. At its core, this controversy reflected a deeper divide. One vision sees New Zealand thriving through global integration, trading more, welcoming talent, and embedding itself in the Indo-Pacific growth story. The other prioritizes domestic stability, protecting local industries, managing population pressures, and ensuring the benefits of globalization are clearly shared. The housing crisis became a symbol of these tensions. Any policy perceived to increase demand without addressing supply was met with immediate resistance. This clash of visions explains why the deal became so politically charged. India's bigger game.
It's a very multifarious engagement, particularly to benefit our farmers and dairy through technical collaboration, which will help them upgrade quality, productivity, and therefore their incomes.
For India, this agreement was part of a much larger strategy. In 2025 alone, India signed multiple trade deals, steadily expanding its global footprint.
It's also our third FTA with a Five Eyes nation, Australia, UK, and now New Zealand. We are soon going to launch discussions for the terms of reference with Canada also.
The approach has been consistent: protect sensitive sectors, secure market access, and leverage mobility to support economic growth. The New Zealand deal fit that pattern perfectly. The verdict. So who really won? For India, the answer is clear. It gained comprehensive access, protected its domestic industries, secured investment commitments, and strengthened its global negotiating position. For New Zealand, the picture is mixed. Exporters in sectors like forestry, wine, kiwi fruit, and services stand to benefit. But the exclusion of dairy, the coalition fracture, and the public backlash came at a significant political cost. More than anything, the deal revealed how divided New Zealand is about globalization, immigration, and economic direction. This wasn't just a trade agreement, it was a stress test of leadership, public trust, and national priorities. The deal will likely pass. The economic effects will unfold slowly, but the political and social questions it raised may linger far longer. Because in today's global economy, the real challenge isn't signing deals, it's bringing your people with you when you do.